Hey everyone, and welcome to my 24th XCOM 2 challenge run. I know it's been a while since I posted one of these, so I hope you've all been keeping well, and I think today's video should make up for my prolonged absence. The title of the video isn't clickbait. We're gonna beat this game without firing a gun a single time. Or at least we're going to try. I know, it sounds insane, right? That's probably because it is, but let's see how we go. So the rules for this run are pretty straightforward. We're playing on Commander difficulty, we're playing on Honest Man, so we're only reloading in the events of misclicks, glitches, or other nonsense, and the use of guns is strictly prohibited. So first things first, what exactly are we counting as a gun? Now, I opted to go with the Oxford Languages definition of a gun, which basically boils down to a metal tube that fires projectiles. So all the obvious things are out, like rifles and shotguns, but I also consider the grenade launcher and heavy weapons to fit this definition, so those are out too. Initially, I did allow the use of grappling hooks, but I later changed my mind on this. They're pretty much just a gun that shoots rope, so I end up banning those a few missions in, and we'll talk more about that later. For right now, the main thing to know is that this run sucks. I mean, it really may be the worst I've ever done on the channel. And a big blocker is the first mission, as in we were over an hour into the first stream, and about 8 or 9 attempts deep, before we successfully beat the very first mission. And the main thing that makes it challenging is our limited amount of attacks. The rookies can't use their rifles, which obviously reduces our options significantly. Now we can use their grenades. Grenades themselves are permitted, provided they're being thrown by hand. It's only the actual grenade launcher itself that's banned. On top of this, I opt to start with the Templars as we can use their rend attacks every turn. Melee attacks are fair game in this run. But see, on top of our limited attacks, we're just getting really bad RNG. Like, I think there was only a single attempt of this first mission where both pods did not spawn right on top of one another. The rest of the time, it was a straight up 6 vs 4 handicap match, which with no guns is about as terrible as it sounds. But at least we have grenades, right? Well, let's talk about grenades. Firstly, each soldier can only carry one, so that's a single attack for each of our rookies, and that's all they can do. And the way frag grenades work in this game is they do a guaranteed 3 HP of damage, with a 20% chance of inflicting 4 damage instead. Now, I went back through the footage of all these gatecrasher attempts, and I counted 15 attacks we landed with grenades. And you know how many of them inflicted 4 damage instead of the minimum of 3? None. Nada. Bubkiss. 0. That 20% chance didn't trigger a single time in 15 attacks. You want to know what the chances of that happening are? It's about 3.5%. And on Commander difficulty, the difference between 3 damage and 4 damage is the difference between one-shotting a trooper and having that trooper survive to shoot at you on its turn. It's a huge difference. So between the low damage rolls and activating both pods at once, our troops are just getting wiped out again and again. And I just reload only for the exact same thing to repeat on the next attempt. Now, there was one attempt where we were able to lure Advent onto the roof of a building. Now, this is really awesome because in addition to the 3 damage from our grenade, the trooper's gonna fall through the roof and take fall damage, and that's gonna guarantee their demise in one attack. Now, while this is good, sadly this strategy leads me to losing track of the captain, and it's able to flank our Templar and one-shot him. No minimum damage for the captain's attack, it seems, only for us. And I really don't want to lose any troops on this mission, especially the Templar. It's going to be up to him to carry us through the first couple of missions, so we need him alive and healthy. And so what does my strategy to beat the first mission of the game end up being? And honestly, there's not much strategy at all. We just keep repeating the mission ad nauseum until we finally don't get horrible RNG. That's really all there is to it. Now, I wish there was some cool cheese we could use, but no, we just wait for the RNG to finally give us a break. And I know I've talked about the first mission for a while, but hopefully I've been able to make it clear just how terrible this run is going to be. On the successful attempt, everyone has survived, but Nemrus has taken an injury, so I decide to promote him first. Rangers are going to be the only base class that's going to be useful initially, so by promoting him first, I'm maximising the probability that he'll be promoted to one of the other 3 classes. This then improves our odds that one of the 2 remaining healthy soldiers will be promoted to a ranger. The game will give you 1 each of the 4 base classes upon promotion before it gives you any double ups. And yeah, the plan works, we get a ranger in board. And then things get even better when our Templar scores Blade Storm on his first promotion. Now this is incredibly good luck. Early in the campaign, being able to attack at all is gonna be a big problem. So having our Templar being able to make free melee attacks that will basically never miss is gonna make things so much easier for us. After throwing all that horrible RNG our way, it seems the game is actually coming through with the goods now. Alright, so strategic layer, building the GTS is priority number 1. Training more rangers is going to be vital to our success. Their blade attack makes them the only base class that can reliably attack every single turn. Now melee attacks come with big risks in this game. Just watch my Templar only run to see for yourself. So rangers may not be all that good, but they are the best we have, by a long shot. So the more of them we have, the merrier, at least for right now. And the second mission has an engineer up for grabs, so we want to win at all costs. Losing out on this engineer will cripple our progress on the strategic layer if we can't clear out rooms on the Avenger fast enough. We need a victory here. I send Board and our Templar Poseidon, as well as 2 rookies. None of the other classes are going to help us at this stage. Specialists can only attack with their grenade, so they're pretty much the same as a rookie. And Grenadiers literally cannot attack at all. All of their attacks either use their cannon or their grenade launcher. Both of those things are banned. So we set out with our 2 rookies who can only throw a single grenade each, and our 2 melee attackers. Let's see how we go. I'm trying to get close to the objective we need to hack before I blow concealment. But see, my plan backfires as one of the pods patrols into us. Chainsaw takes a hit and he's down to 1 HP, while we now have 2 pods and a total of 4 active enemies barreling down upon us. And a situation like this is why Templar Bladestorm is so nice. We can have Poseidon attack the captain and then just stand right next to it. When the captain tries to move or attack on its turn, Poseidon is going to finish it off with Bladestorm. And unless the enemy has an ability that counters Bladestorm, which this captain does not, our attack is guaranteed to hit. So Poseidon can pretty much provide a guaranteed elimination in 1 turn, even on the higher HP enemies at this stage in the game. I cannot emphasize enough how clutch it was to score Bladestorm this early in the game. Board, however, is not nearly as useful. She misses an 88% slash attack, so my hopes of taking out both troopers this turn have gone up in flames. But hey, we can still burn through 2 grenades to destroy one of the troopers. That's a pretty good trade, right? Yeah, that's another 2 minimum damage grenades. That now makes 17 in a row. 2.25% chance of that one for the record. Approximately. I was hoping the sectoid would go for a psionic attack or raise a zombie, but it doesn't. Instead, it wipes Chainsaw off the face of the earth. That's rough. Now the trooper thankfully misses, and the captain gets bladestormed into oblivion. On the next turn, Board is thankfully able to redeem herself by wiping out the trooper. And we can use that same Bladestorm trick on the sectoid, so it's going to go down as well. And with 1 turn left on the countdown, we're finally able to hack the objective. So it did cost us a rookie, but things are looking up. At least until reinforcements get called in. I was hoping to stand Poseidon right in the middle of the drop-down area, get some free Bladestorms off as they come down, but see, he can't get there without being set on fire. I guess that's what happens when you use grenades to attack. And besides that, moving up on the drop-down area causes us to activate another pod. So including the reinforcements, it's now 5 versus 3. And realistically, that's more like 5 versus 2 since Drifter used his only grenade and can no longer attack. And you know what, just forget everything I said, make it 5 versus 1. Poseidon gets panicked, he can't do anything either. Now, he does fire his gun here, but we're not going to count that for the challenge. It only counts if I, as the commander, direct the soldier to use their gun. Them going off on their own and acting like a clown doesn't break the rules of the run. And I have talked about my reasoning for this in the past. I think it was in the secondaries only run, so maybe you can check that video out after this one if you still need something to watch. For now though, I decide to make a pretty crazy play. We're going to send Board in to run the Overwatch and take out the sectoid, which will remove Poseidon's panic, and then he'll be able to attack. So it's extremely high risk and high reward. Will it work out? Let's have a look. Well, she gets blasted for 3 HP on the Overwatch, and then she rolls minimum damage against the sectoid, so it survives. Yep, that's the XCOM I've come to both know and despise. On the enemy turn, through some miracle, Advent miss with all of their attacks. I think they do suffer an aim debuff if your squad drops below 4 members, so that's probably why they're missing so much. Either way, I really didn't expect everyone to survive that turn, so we're going to take that win. I mean, we'll take whatever we can get at this point. Now Poseidon, through some clever positioning by yours truly, and the power of Bladestorm, he should be able to eradicate both the captain and one of the troopers on the next turn. I don't want to risk missing with Board slash, so I go for the guaranteed grenade damage and get rid of the sectoid that way, and this also takes out the zombie that it had raised. Now meanwhile, Drifter's being harassed by a trooper, and because he can't fight back, Drifty Boy begins the world's most pathetic game of hide and seek. We just run away from the trooper to break line of sight, and we hope that it doesn't regain line of sight and end us. Hopefully Drift can stay alive long enough for one of the other soldiers to come and save his hide. This is kind of embarrassing. 2 troopers are still alive on Advent's turn. Their luck finally turns around and both of them land with their attacks. We've taken some damage, but everyone is still alive for now. So Poseidon cleans up his side of the map, and he and Board then start heading towards Drifter, who's been isolated. And the problem is that one more hit on Poseidon or Board is gonna finish them off. We can't afford to lose either of these soldiers right now, so we really want to stay out of the trooper's line of sight until we're close enough to slice him up. And sure enough, that's what we're able to do. An absolutely insane mission here, and it's really good we obtained the engineer. And even though we somehow pulled out the victory, our Templar and Ranger are wounded for a significant amount of time, and without those two, we really can't do much at all on the tactical layer, so the next few missions are gonna be tough. Now mission number 3 is a lost mission, not a horde mission, a lost mission. There is an important difference. If it were a horde mission, we'd only be dealing with lost. But on a lost mission, we have to deal with lost and Advent soldiers appearing on the map. I know I just said the word lost a lot, I hope that description made sense. Anyway, we only have 1 specialist and a bunch of rookies. So that's 4 attacks with 4 grenades, and each grenade we use will draw more lost closer to us. It doesn't sound real good, does it? Well, let's see how this one's gonna go. Oh my god. Don't, no, 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 no. Oh, it's over, bros. It's over. Oh, Hot Body died for nothing. I should have kept him safe. Yeah, it's a squad wipe. I know, shocking. See, if it was a horde mission, we could have just run past the Lost and potentially survived. But with Advent there, we had to balance moving away from the Lost while also being in cover so we don't get shot. And without any real way to defend ourselves, the squad never had a chance on this one. It would have been nice to get that scientist, but I don't think missing out on them is the end of the world. At least I hope not. So by the time the Retaliation mission occurs, we thankfully have one more ranger, but we're so limited on troops I'm only sending 3, and one of them is a grenadier who can do nothing other than serve as a meat shield. Now, I have no illusions of winning this mission. I'm mostly just curious to see what Chosen we're going to be dealing with. If they have melee immunity, that's going to be a really big problem. And it ends up being our favourite talky boy, or least favourite talky boy, the Warlock. Now his strengths are brutal and regeneration. These aren't great, but at least it's not melee immunity. His weaknesses are Bewildered and Templars. So look, we only have 2 soldiers who can attack. I decide to evac out straight away. Until we have more soldiers who can actually do something on the tactical layer, most missions are going to be a mismatch at this point. Avoiding combat whenever possible is our best bet. Next up we have a guerrilla op. By now we've got 3 rangers and a sharpshooter. Now sharpshooters are also pretty useless. All they can do is throw a single grenade. And on top of that, stun lancers are spawning now, which is actually both good and bad. Bad because it means we have to deal with stun lancers, which are a really annoying enemy type. But it's good because if we can recover one of their corpses, we're going to be able to upgrade our swords. And our swords are pretty much the only thing keeping us alive at this point, so any improvements we can give them are going to come in quite useful. And we do actually have the concealment sitrep on this one. This means that after Drifter has used his lonesome grenade, we can put him back into concealment and he can serve as a scout for us. So he actually does serve a purpose even after he's used his one grenade. That's pretty cool. And yeah, we win. Easily, in fact. And this was the first easy mission of the run. See, having 3 soldiers who can attack is just an exponential improvement over 2. Not to mention, the fact that it was a sewer level actually helped us, which is a rare occurrence. We were able to scout the enemies with Drifter, and then keep our rangers behind walls and out of line of sight until they were close enough to attack. Everything just came together for us on this one really perfectly. Maybe this run is turning around, because the next mission, it's looking even better. We have 5 soldiers now, and all of them will be able to attack more than once. 4 rangers and a newly acquired skirmisher. Now obviously skirmishers can't use their gun, but the Ripjack is fair game. Mostly. And if we can win this supply raid, we'll secure enough alloys to upgrade our swords. So this one is mission critical. But very quickly we encounter a big problem. Purifiers. Now these things have a chance to explode when you take them out, so slicing them up at close range is a pretty terrible idea. On top of that, there's 2 pods in close proximity, which is a big problem. So I decide the best idea is to climb down into this ditch. Yep, crawling into a literal hole, that's the strat. My thinking was, by being in the hole, we can break line of sight with the pod on the higher ground. Then we can deal with the bad guys one group at a time, get the lower pod first, the higher pod after that. Now unfortunately, the plan does not work. I end up activating the second pod regardless. And you'll see here, I do use the Justice attack with the Skirmisher. Again, later on I decided to not actually use this attack, since it is utilising the grappling hook. But anyway, it's honestly not an issue for very long. Between an incendiary grenade from the purifier and a turret actually hitting a shot, when does that ever happen? We lose our skirmisher and one of our rangers in a single turn. That's 40% of our team wiped out just like that. So crawling into the hole of death turned out to be a terrible idea. Who could have seen this coming, right? On the next turn, I'm left with no choice but to melee the purifier and just hope that he doesn't explode. So we run in with Sarge and, hey, look at that, he doesn't explode. That's good. I honestly did not expect that. Now, our skirmisher is actually still alive, he's just bleeding out, but I opt to abandon him as winning the mission is more important than losing another soldier, which would be required to evac him out. Then we'd be down to 2. We really want to win this mission, and gaining another skirmisher shouldn't be too hard. So, sorry guy, thanks for your service, I guess. Then the turret is seemingly able to shoot through this tiny gap in the giant dropship, and it connects again. This turret is scary accurate. This mission sucks. And it's not done kicking me down just yet. The final pod is a captain, a trooper, and of course, a purifier. And once again, we just don't have the damage output to deal with all these guys in one turn. So we eat another flame bomb and we lose Sarge. And I know someone is going to say that I shouldn't be clustering all my troops this closely together. If I spread them out, we could avoid getting the fire grenade. But see, when you're melee attacking the same enemy, clustering your soldiers really can't be avoided. And then I mess up really badly here. I just assumed that soldiers couldn't slash while they're burning, so I move Board to hunker down, which will extinguish the flames that are burning her. But it turns out she actually could have slashed, and that may have let us end this encounter one turn earlier, and that would have prevented Dollar Store Master Chief here getting wiped out by this turret that never seems to miss. Seriously, what is up with this thing? Have you ever seen turrets to be this dangerous? If I had known this thing was going to be this annoying, I would have taken the time to destroy it when we first came across it. Now, I mean, Master Chief would have succumbed to burn damage anyway, so I guess it wouldn't have made much difference, but whatever. Board ends the mission with a grenade, and at least one person survives. And it means we win the mission, and we're gonna get all those supplies. So the reward is good, but it came at losing a whole bunch of soldiers. All those rangers we spent all that time training have been wiped out. We're back to square one. I mean, the good news is we can upgrade our swords now, but that's not really that good given we have only a single soldier who can wield a sword. So yeah, maybe this mission wasn't so mission critical after all. Alright, so it's time to train some more rangers. We need some more as quickly as we can get them. And we do soon get hold of a Reaper as well. Now again, they can only attack once with their claymore, but between a claymore and a grenade, that combo can potentially one-shot an entire pod. Plus, the Reaper remains useful for scouting even after they've attacked. So they're probably the least useful of the 3 hero classes, but they're still better than a sharpshooter or a grenadier. Alright, so back on the tactical layer, some time has passed, we have got some rangers, and we seem to be doing okay as we fend off 2 pods. But just as we finish the last sectoid, we activate another pod. There's a mech, and we're running low on grenades, so our shredding capabilities are really limited. And here, allow me to demonstrate why tier 2 swords are so good. Not only do they inflict more damage, they have a small chance to stun. I think it's 25%. Now, it doesn't trigger all that often, but here we score it on the mech, and that's awesome. That means we don't have to finish it this turn, so we don't have to cluster our troops all around it. And that means we can avoid a fire grenade from the purifier. This was clutch. On the next turn, Rogue vanquishes the mech, and now we need to deal with the purifier. So we send in Bedwetter, hoping that it doesn't explode. Yeah, look, let's... So my thinking there, and it didn't work out obviously, but my thinking was if the purifier doesn't blow up, it's better for Bedwetter to be in cover and burning than not in cover where the captain can shoot him. So that was my thinking. Obviously it didn't really pan out there, did it? I tell you, there's something about Bedwetter, sewer missions, and mechs. They never end well for him. Rest in peace, buddy. Now, we do complete the mission without any further losses, but it is becoming clear to me that purifiers are a real problem. And short of praying to RNGesus for a Templar with Fortress, I don't really have an answer for them. This is a problem. Now, we score a corporal level specialist as a reward. This is really nice because we can get combat protocol. Now, I was a bit iffy on whether combat protocol should be allowed or not, but ultimately I decided it was fine. The gremlin flies right next to the enemy to attack. It does not fire a projectile, so I'm treating combat protocol as a melee attack. But, there's a bigger problem than purifiers. See, we have the second retaliation mission. This throws a couple of really major obstacles at us. The first is the Warlock. He's back, and something else I had forgotten about is that he can summon spectral zombies. These zombies can enter a rupture state, guaranteeing they will explode for big damage when you delete them. So there's not really any safe way for us to deal with these things. Now, the second obstacle I had thought about, but it's the introduction of mutons. Now, mutons have an ability called counterattack. So basically how this works is when you launch a melee attack against the muton, it has a chance to fail. And if your attack does fail, the muton gets to launch a melee attack of its own. A counterattack, if you will. Now, you can disable that ability with a flashbang, but that becomes an expensive operation. One flashbang for every muton we need to take out. That really reduces our ability to carry other items. Now, we do have plated armor by this point, which gives us a second utility slot, and don't get me wrong, that is really helpful, but we can still only carry a single grenade per soldier. So every flashbang we want to bring along is one soldier we now cannot equip with a frag grenade. So that limits our options for shredding and for guaranteed damage. But anyway, one obstacle at a time. Getting back to the zombies, one of them does indeed explode on us. Now, thankfully it only does 3 HP damage. That's less than I was expecting. But the bigger problem is that the Warlock spawning these zombies puts us in a situation where we want to reach the Warlock as quickly as possible. Once we activate him, he'll stop summoning spectral zombies on us. Of course, the problem with rushing in this game is that you risk getting bad pod activations. So we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. And a couple of things happen as we push forward. We can wipe out this spectral zombie with 2 grenades, which means we're not going to take any damage from it exploding. The trade-off is those 2 grenades were our only way of shredding the mech that's still on the map. Also, in a rare occurrence, the resistance fighters actually prove really useful and they eliminate a purifier for us. That saves us having to risk an explosion from a melee attack. Then we trigger a faceless and we go to town on it. The mech I mentioned is active by now, and there's zero possibility of us taking out both the faceless and the mech in the one turn. And see, both these things have AoEs that they can use to cause huge damage to the civilians hiding in the shipping container. So I pretty much resigned myself to losing this mission. I don't see how we're going to be able to save enough of the resistance personnel. But, for whatever reason, the mech opts not to use its missile attack. Instead it targets a single resistance fighter. I have no idea why it did this, as we had multiple soldiers clustered together that it could have hit, but I am not going to complain. I will thank this mech for its mercy by delivering it a quick and decisive end. Once the Warlock spots our squad and enters his active state, he's actually a lot less dangerous. He's not going to spawn any more spectral zombies, so we don't have to worry about them self-destructing on us. And on his turn, the Warlock doesn't actually use any psionic abilities. He just fires his rifle at a random resistance fighter. You don't see that too often. But look, if he wants to waste his turn, I'm certainly not going to stop him. And then on our turn, we take the big man down. And even though this mission felt easier and may have come across easier in the video than some of the previous, the truth is we just got really lucky. The resistance AI was really good, while the enemy AI was completely hopeless. But a victory is a victory, and of course, we are going to take it. So by the next mission, I've decided to stop using grappling hooks, so you won't see me using those again. But we have made a couple of developments here. One is that we have the frost bomb, which could come in useful. And two, we have the Skulljack with Skull Mine on our specialist. Now, Skull Mine can only be used once per mission, but it gives us a method to one-shot a purifier and guarantee that it won't blow up when we end it. So this could be really good. Let's do it. Alright, mission time. We send in Valdra to land the Skull Mine, and she misses. How wonderful. But don't you worry, our MVP Valdra, she's not done just yet. She gets panicked by a sectoid and lobs a grenade right into our boy Average. Now, I know XCOM troops can throw grenades at teammates when panicked, but I always thought this would only happen if at least 2 of you troops could be caught in the blast radius. Never, in my well over 1,000 hours of playing this game, can I recall a panicked soldier throwing a grenade at one individual teammate. So Valdra here is taking failure to heights that I thought were literally impossible. But hey, at least she's sticking to the no guns thing at least, so I gotta give her some credit for that. Now, unfortunately for her, one of the sectoids has taken cover next to this explosive gas tank. A tank that she's also right next to. Now, she moved there while she was panicked. I did not move her there. And normally in this situation, I would think twice before purposefully detonating an explosion on one of our own troops. But Valdra here has been so awful this mission that not only do I not hesitate to do it, I enjoy doing it. This woman has done more damage to our team on this mission than the total enemy forces combined, so I think some turnaround is fair play. Now she does survive, and after this we get a bad pod activation, but it is a whole pod of sectoids. And between Blade Master on some of our ranges and our tier 2 swords, these skinny guys are a guaranteed one-shot. So the rest of the mission is actually pretty easy. We just slice them up. And look at the debrief screen here. We took 2 injuries and both of them were self-inflicted. We literally did more damage to ourselves than Advent did to us. You don't see that too often. Alright, now another lost mission. Let's see if we've improved or not. The first thing you might notice is that we have 2 Templars. We scored a second one from a covert op, and the strat to deal with the lost is mostly just positioning Poseidon, our Bladestorm Templar, to cut through the lost on their turn. And without Bladestorm, I'm really not sure how viable any lost mission would be. We really want to get that ability on our ranges as quickly as we can. Also, I did want to show you this. I've bonded Poseidon and Board. Poseidon is able to attack once and use parry, as he always would be, but then Board can give him another action, so he can attack again and then get a second use of parry. And yes, each use will stack, so that means he's guaranteed to block the first 2 attacks made against him. I never realized this before. This is extremely OP, could become really useful, and a good strategy for everyone to turn their Templars into tanks. And yeah, there we go, flawless mission, and we managed to snag every single loot crate. Things are like night and day versus the previous lost mission. We've come a very far way indeed. On the next mission, we draw out the codex. We do need to make some story progress, that avatar progress, you always got to watch it. Now this thing, it does attack us, but it only goes for a psionic bomb. And obviously, since we're not using our guns anyway, an attack that jams our guns isn't too big of a deal for us. And then, when Rogue attacks the codex with a sword, she gets a clutch stun, so the codex can't even clone. And needless to say, we take this thing out pretty easily. And now we get some shenanigans, but the good kind. We can recruit a third Templar. Now this should not be an option. Without mods, the maximum amount of any hero unit you can have at a time is 2. But for some reason, the game is being generous. Now, I'm not sure if this glitch is a vanilla thing, or perhaps one of my mods is causing this problem. Not really sure, but whatever. I'm gonna take full advantage and recruit that third Templar. There is no honor on this channel. In the meantime though, we have a guerrilla op, and the Warlock is here. And by now, he's summoning 2 spectral zombies at a time. Now usually only one of them will activate Rupture on any given turn, but having 2 of them is still bad. It's doubled the number of enemies that we really don't have a good answer to. On top of that, we get a bad pot activation while having no decent cover and being too far away to effectively melee attack. Yeah, this mission is not going well. We send Holiday in for a 91% melee on one of the shield bearers. Yes, there are 2. And of course, she misses. We've also got a mech and a stun lancer active, and without getting rid of their shields right there, it's unlikely we can finish both this turn. Both these things are dangerous enemies. I prioritise the mech mainly because it's easier to reach and attack than the lancer is, and on the enemy turn, Holiday's incompetence comes back to haunt her as one of the shield bearers wipes her out. So sad. Such a tragic loss there. Now here come the spectral zombies, and this is looking really bad. I use Mike Duster, our second Templar, with a desperate volt on the ruptured zombie. It's a 3 to 6 damage range, and the zombie has 5 HP. So there's a very slim chance we can one-shot it and avoid having anyone get blown up, and Mike pulls it off. That may have been the difference between losing another soldier and not. Mike is the MVP of this one. We end up hacking the objective and then we just evac out. The terrain sucks for our melee heavy squad, there's too much vertical ground to cover, and I'm not convinced our remaining soldiers are going to be able to defeat the Warlock. Hacking the objective will stop the dark event, we'll just miss out on the mission reward, and I'd prefer that over losing any more troops. No matter how incompetent they are, we need as many people as we can get. So as bad as this was, it could have been much worse. That Warlock is really proving to be a problem though. And speaking of problems, we have another Retaliation mission. And Berserkers are going to be on this one. They have really large amounts of HP, and I'm just not sure our squad will have the damage output needed to deal with them. So what the heck are we going to do? Now we are broke, but I can sell enough items to cobble together enough supplies for squad size 2. So that's going to give us a 6th soldier, meaning an extra attack per turn. And there's also Magister here. She's our 3rd Templar, who we shouldn't have, but we do have her, and just like Poseidon, she has scored Bladestorm as a hidden ability fairly early on, so we might just have a chance here. I use Bladestorm to attack one of the mutons. Some people have told me Bladestorm can activate the muton's counterattack ability, but I don't remember ever seeing this myself, so I'm not sure if that's correct or not. But anyway, it doesn't happen here. And between the grenades, Volt, and Voldra's combat protocol, we do have some non-melee options to deal with these big guys. And combat protocol ignores armor too, so that makes it quite useful on the mutons. Thanks to a bad pot activation, we end up with 2 active Berserkers and 4 active mutons. Now Gold, or the Banana Man as I call him, is thankfully able to shut down 4 of the bad guys with a single flashbang. And then what proceeds to transpire here is truly a crazy set of events. We wipe out one of the Berserkers, but that still leaves 4 enemies. So the first one we parry, so no damage there. The second one attacks a civilian instead of us. We're 2 for 2. Magister rolls high damage on a Blade Storm and finishes this muton before it can do anything. That's 3 attacks we've managed to avoid. Another muton shoots at board, but it misses. That's 4. And the last muton has a sliver of health, which we Blade Storm right out of him. So yeah, all 5 attacks avoided. I was really worried about the number of bad guys here, and yet we didn't take a single hit. Sometimes RNG giveth, etc, etc. And then a covert op to add +1 damage to our blades. Yes please, we are gonna take that. And even better, the reward for this covert op is a promotion, so we have our first Colonel Ranger at the same time. Things are certainly looking up here. And as if all that's not enough, the game is letting me recruit a 4th Templar. What on earth is happening here? This is ridiculous. And at this point, the run's actually going really well, and I'm genuinely shocked about that. There's only one problem. When I say the run is going really well, that's not entirely true. See, to be more accurate, the tactical layer is going really well. On the strategic layer, things are, well, they're kind of bad. See, the first thing is that we have no supplies. I mean, you can see here, we're gaining +1 per council drop. That's not going to help very much. And so why are we so short on funds? The reason is twofold. I've been building a lot of facilities, and each facility we build increases our monthly upkeep cost. Well, I think it's actually every 3 weeks in this game, not every month, but you get my point. So to counter that, you have to increase your monthly income or your 3 weekly income. And how do we do this? Now, normally the easiest way is you make contact with other regions. Now, I've been avoiding doing this. See, the problem with making contact with other regions is that it's going to reveal more chosen. And the more chosen that show up, the higher the chance one of them is going to have melee immunity as an ability. And that's going to be a big problem for us. So I want to avoid them for as long as I can. That means not expanding to new regions. That means not having any money. Now, not having supplies alone isn't a big deal. It just limits our ability to build useful items like mimic beacons and blue screen bombs. No, the bigger issue is that the avatar progress has filled, and having contacted only 2 regions, our options of stopping it are very limited. Limited to 1, in fact. The Blacksite. Normally, I'd have done the Blacksite already, but the map for that mission is big, and the Warlock will be dropping spectral zombies on us the entire time. Eventually we'll run out of grenades, and we're not going to be able to deal with them effectively. So the Blacksite could prove a real problem. So what are we going to do? Well, I decide to do something that may be considered a little bit extreme, I guess. See, what if there was no Warlock? That would make the Blacksite much easier, wouldn't it? So if we can hit the Warlock's base, and then the Blacksite straight after, we could reduce the avatar progress and keep the run alive. So that's what we're going to do. Or at least that's what we're going to try to do. So we sell even more items to equip every soldier with blue screen bombs, and off we go. On Commander difficulty, the sarcophagus has exactly 60 HP. We have 6 blue screen bombs that will deal 10 damage each. And those bombs are the only means we have of attacking the sarcophagus. Melee attacks will not work on it, nor will the Templars Vault attack. So if we lose even 1 soldier on our way to the main chamber, we can't destroy the sarcophagus, and the mission is a failure. So as a result, I play very conservatively here. There's no time limit, so we're just going to creep forward slowly and make sure we're in a good position to deal with any enemies we come across. Take our time, play it safe. And you might be wondering, why would I want to face the Warlock in his base but not on the Blacksite? What's the difference? And the main thing is that in his fortress, by the time we encounter him, he's going to be right on top of us. So he won't have the opportunity to summon Rupture zombies. he only does that before he's activated, before he's in your team's line of sight. And so him not being able to call in zombies as backup, that's going to make dealing with him significantly easier for us. And when I say easier, yeah, he's pretty easy. We just run everybody in with melee attacks and surround him. I wasn't sure if summoning reinforcements would activate Bladestorm since it's not an attack, but no, it does. The Warlock is gone, and his Stun Lancer bro is gone too, just as quickly as he arrived, no less. So that worked brilliantly, really. I was pretty chuffed at the time too. And then we're going to get a Bladestorm on him too, aren't we? Holy moly! Oh, goodness me! Alright. Oh, wow.
Sure thing.
Okay. Well, that's done then. You are already dead. Imagine being summoned, then immediately see your boss dying in front of you instantly. It's like, well, what have you brought me into, you idiot? Oh, goodness. That was pretty special. And the best part about finishing the Warlock on his turn as opposed to ours is that no reinforcements spawn in. So we have our entire turn to attack the sarcophagus, nothing else to worry about. And anyway, when the talkie boy returns, he only has 8 HP. He's pretty much cowering in fear, but we can use Invert to pull him into the squad's melee range, and then it's over for this guy. He's certainly fallen off from the earlier missions we encountered him in. How things have changed. Now, as great as this is, my master plan does come with a trade-off. We just used most of our high-level soldiers on that mission, and now they're tired, so we're going to have to send a few low-levels on the Blacksite. But once again, there's no time limit, and there's no Warlock now, so we're just going to take our time, deal with the bad guys as they come, hopefully everything goes to plan. Well, things start off horribly badly as a pod comes around the corner and blows our concealment. Now this causes a second pod I was about to ambush to activate, and then on top of that, a third pod stumbles into us, also activating. And I mentioned we're using low-level troops for this one, right? So yeah, what are we gonna do here? Let's see. With a lucky shutdown from a blue screen bomb and a frost bomb, we can disable both heavy mechs. That might keep us alive for an extra 5 seconds or so I guess that's a positive. And you'll notice here I'm using a Psi operative. And so the question is, does the Psi-op count as a gun? Obviously, I believe the answer is no, since I'm using the Psi-amp. And if you look at the animation for attacks like Soulfire or Null Lance or whatever, the attack actually comes from the operative's hand, not the Psi-amp itself. So I don't consider the Psi-amp a gun, since the soldier is shooting the attack from their body. Now, I don't know, maybe some Karen might want to count the Psi-op's hand as a gun, since it is firing a projectile. But look, by that logic, your anus counts as a gun when you're frantically running to the bathroom after the spicy curry you had for dinner. And while it may cause huge amounts of devastation, just like a gun can, I think we can all agree it's not a firearm you're unloading into your toilet bowl. So I think Psi attacks are fair game, and building the Psi lab is something I've been doing in the background for quite a while in this run. Once we have enough Psi-ops, they're going to be able to carry the run through the end game. At least that's what my hope is. Anyway, surprisingly, Average is the only one who takes damage on the enemy turn. And it's honestly his fault for missing his attack on the Archon anyway. He could have finished it off if he had hit, so whatever. Then on our turn, just as I'm celebrating a stun on the Trooper, we activate a turret. So we just swapped one enemy for another. Then we roll low damage on the Archon, so we have to attack it twice rather than once. And this Templar doesn't have Bladestorm, so we cannot rely on that. Then we miss with our Skull Mine on the other Trooper. This would honestly be a comedy of errors if it weren't for the fact the entire campaign is relying on the success of this mission. Then another low damage roll on the Heavy Mech. Awesome. An onslaught of attacks comes from Advent and average goes down. And then a fourth pod patrols into us. And then the turret wipes out our Psi operative. That guy took a really long time to train. This is a massacre. And it's really just garbage RNG. I mean, I think at this point, every single enemy on the map has converged on us at the same time, and every attack we launch seems to either deal low damage or just miss completely. Really wasn't much we could do here. And it's just a prolonged beatdown at this point. We do take a lot of Advent down with us, but there's just too many enemies. And the turret lands 3 out of 3 attacks. The turrets are absolutely insane this run. So with all but the Templar gone, I just start running him to the Blacksite vial. If he can escape with this thing alive, we'll still win the mission. Despite all of our troops that we've lost, we'll still be able to reduce the Avatar progress. So we are able to grab the vial, and we even get pretty close to the evac zone. And I guess that's the good part of having all the enemies attack you at the same time. Leaves the rest of the map pretty much empty. But then reinforcements drop in, and of course there's a heavy mech. This is the one thing I didn't want to see. It goes on Overwatch, and that is the worst thing it could do. Our Templar doesn't have Shadow Step, so all we can do is run to the evac zone and hope for the best. Well, here we go. What's gonna happen? The mech misses. Our Templar makes it out alive. And not only have we lost 5 soldiers, though to be honest, they were all pretty incompetent, so I don't think any of them are a huge loss, but the gear they were carrying really is. The Hunter's Axe, the TLP Sword, the Frost Bomb, and the Skulljack, all gone. Most of those things are unique items. We cannot get them back. So things are going to get more difficult as we go forward. And immediately we have a guerrilla op. Awesome. So it's more low levels off on this one. I give the mission a half-hearted attempt, but I'm not expecting to win. And the same thing happens as the Blacksite. Every Advent soldier and their dog converges on us all at once, and we get swarmed with way too many enemies. I place the evac point right next to the general that we have to eliminate. I'm hoping we can melee him as we evac out. But of course, when we attack, we miss, so no luck, that plan's not going to work. I did keep a few soldiers around for an extra turn to hopefully take out the general. I mean, it's a low-level ranger, skirmisher, and reaper, so none of them are hugely valuable. It's not the end of the world if we lose them. Now the skirmisher and the reaper end up getting left behind, and we're not even able to defeat the general, so I sacrificed them for nothing. Man, this run went from going well to absolutely terrible in record time. But it gets even worse. What you're about to see is possibly the worst play I've ever made, not just on my channel, but playing this game at all. In fact, possibly playing any game in my life. So here's the deal. The Blacksite only reduced the Avatar progress by 1, so needless to say, it quickly fills up again. Now I'm desperately building a radio relay as it will give us instant contact with further regions. We have a heap of intel, so once it's finished we can instantly expand out, reach the Psionic Gate mission, and lower the progress once again. Keep us in this thing a little bit longer. So with about 5 days left, we build the relay, and that's fine, that's what we want. But see, I've forgotten to build the communications array, so we can only contact a maximum of 3 regions, meaning we're maxed out, and we can't contact any more. This was a gigantic blunder on my part. I really didn't think ahead. But the thing is, as bad as that was, that's not even the worst part of this. Look at the region we have contacted. There's an alien facility right there. We could go blow it up and reduce the Avatar progress right now. For whatever reason, I just completely ignore it. Instead, I fly to Skirmisher HQ to build the comms array faster. This was so unbelievably stupid. Now we get a council drop. That's going to allow us to add an extra 25% construction speed thanks to a resistance order. But even with that, the array still isn't gonna complete in time. And yeah, that's it. Avatar progress defeats us. The entire planet was overtaken by evil alien clone monsters because I'm too dense to see an alien facility that was literally right in front of my face. And at the time, I was really salty because the comms array was only 1 day from completing. If I just thought about it earlier, started building it sooner, we would have been fine. It wasn't until someone in the comment section of my archive channel pointed out the facility that I even realised it was there. I just did not see this thing. Now, in my defense, that Blacksite mission and the subsequent guerrilla op were really frustrating, and that always makes me play worse when I feel like the game is messing me about. But yeah, this was such a monumental oversight. I'm honestly in shock. There was no reason for us to lose this campaign, other than me being a complete smooth brain. And I did consider reloading, building the comms array earlier, and being a bit loose with the honest man rules. After all, if I'd remembered to do it, we would have been fine. But honestly, between the multiple Templars that we're not supposed to have, and between the skirmishers using their grapple in the early game, this run is already walking the line between legitimate and not. So no, I decide we're not going to reload. This one is a loss. So that's it, right? The challenge is a failure. Well, no, of course not. You can see for yourself, the video has plenty of runtime left. So we're not going to reload, we're going to restart. Yeah, it's back to Gatecrasher. We're doing the Hellscape early game all over again. And I know you're probably wondering, how many grenades is it going to take to inflict maximum damage? And the answer might actually shock you. The very first one we use hits a trooper for 4 damage. That's a good sign. Maybe this run is going to be better than the last. Maybe our fortunes have changed. I've got a good feeling about this. Okay, never mind. We're reloading. And let's see, how many attempts is Gatecrasher going to take? So yeah, what was that? Another 5 attempts maybe? There was also a 6th that I restarted, but that was my fault because I accidentally clicked on starting with skirmishers instead of Templars. Anyway, on the successful attempt, we promote our 3 rookies and don't get a ranger. So mission number 2 is up to our Templar, who doesn't have Bladestorm this time around, so a lot less powerful. And it's a sewer mission. Do you remember how I said we desperately need to win the second mission to score an engineer? Well, this should be interesting, shouldn't it? So we send out our Templar, a specialist, a sharpshooter, and a rookie, and you can probably guess how this mission's gonna go. 3 of our soldiers can only attack with a single grenade. We blow concealment early and activate 2 pods at once. Our rookie gets mind controlled. Our Templar rolls minimum damage on the sectoid that's mind controlling him. Another sectoid lands a shot halfway across the map and through full cover. It does this twice, in fact. He makes the shot through full cover twice. And the sectoid mind controls our Templar after the rest of the team has either evac'd or been slaughtered, so we miss out on our engineer. Yeah, this mission was pretty much the worst thing ever, and that's saying a lot given how bad that other run was. So back to Gatecrasher we go. And I was ready for another music montage here, but we actually win on the very next attempt. It takes a really long time, but we are able to pull it off. And in fact, the mission takes so long, the captain actually has to reload his gun because he's out of ammo. That's how many turns we've been going here. We were basically just using hunker down to stall until the Templar was close enough for the rend attack. And because the captain kept moving as well, this was quite a difficult thing to pull off. So this mission was really annoying, but all's well that ends well. Now we can begin the game. I again promote the wounded soldier first, but the RNG is against me and we get the 25% chance of rolling a ranger. This means we have no ranger for the second mission. Again. So our Templar is the only guy who can attack more than once, again. And what's even better, the Lost are on this mission. So we can attack one Lost every turn, and they're probably going to spawn in an average of 2 to 3 new units every turn. Now apparently you don't actually have to defeat the reinforcements to win the mission, only the Lost that initially spawn on the map, as well as the Advent units obviously. Now that's what I've been told. I'm not actually sure if it's correct or not, but see, even if it is true, how on earth do you keep track of which Lost were on the map originally and which ones spawned in after the mission? Definitely not an easy thing to do. So my plan is to stay concealed for as long as possible, letting Advent and the Lost fight each other. New Lost will not spawn while we're concealed. So that works for a while, but as you'd expect, eventually the bad guys are going to spot us. And when they do, the Lost just pour in faster than our one Templar can deal with them. He doesn't have Bladestorm this time around either. We were so lucky to get Bladestorm, and then I just flushed it all down the toilet. Alright, time to restart the campaign then. Now I'm sick of talking about Gatecrasher, and I'm pretty sure you guys are probably sick of hearing about it, so I'll just say that we again win on the very next attempt, and at this point I've lost count of what attempt we're up to. I think it's around 18, and to put that into perspective, the Psionics only run, which was one of the hardest I've done up until now, that took 11 reloads, and we're currently around 18 for this one. So yeah, this is tough. Thankfully, we do finally get a ranger promotion on a soldier that we can actually use. Still no Bladestorm on the Templar though. Now again, I won't bang on about the second mission, but thankfully it's not a sewer mission and there's no Lost, so both of those things are really great. And having 2 soldiers who can attack every turn is so much better than 1. So we actually win pretty decisively here. And even if we hadn't won, we actually get an engineer scanning reward on the strategic layer. So now we'll have 2 engineers, which is going to help us get that Scilab a bit faster. And we get a breakthrough research for +1 damage on our blades. I'm telling you, ladies and gents, the RNG is with us on this run. It only took 18-ish attempts for that to happen, but it's here. We can do this. So mission number 3, it's another council mission, and once again, not a horde mission, it's a Lost mission, meaning both Advent and Lost are here to deal with on this one. And you'll see here, I just skipped the mission entirely. I've learned my lesson from previous attempts. We don't have the ability to fend off Lost at this stage. Now again, if it was a horde mission and we could just run past the Lost, it would probably be okay. But no, skipping this one, I think it's a necessity. And it's not even going to increase the avatar progress this early in the game. The only downside to skipping is missing out on the reward, which I'm fine with because we were going to lose and miss out on the reward anyway. Alright, Retaliation mission time. We're rocking a Templar, 2 Rangers, and a Specialist. Now the Chosen is the Assassin this time, with Revenge and Soul Stealer. Her weakness is Bewildered. Honestly, this is pretty bad. The Assassin always sucks early game, and she has some nasty strengths to boot, but she can't drop an endless supply of exploding zombies on us, so it's still way better than the Warlock. So how does the mission go? Not great, to be honest. The Assassin is able to interrogate Chainsaw, which means she's going to level up faster, and this can often be a death spiral type of situation. We've seen it before in these runs where the Chosen leveling up too quickly then leads to me assaulting their fortress before our team is ready. So this could come back to bite us later, but for now, despite the interrogation, we do still win the mission. Then look at this garbage. Our first 2 dark events are Wild Hunt and Undying Loyalty. And in this scenario, Wild Hunt is honestly the least horrible option. And I would just ask you to think about that. Having the Chosen show up more often as the very first Dark event is our best option. Wow. Thankfully, we are able to stop Undying Loyalty, and it's in no small part due to these two pods deciding to stand right on top of each other. We can throw down a claymore and then a grenade after that.
It requires patience. Orders confirmed. Moving out. Catch! We're visible here!
So 4 enemies down using only 2 soldiers' turns. That's a pretty good investment. A third pod does activate from this, but we're fielding 5 troops now, and the remaining 3 rangers wipe out the last 2 enemies. So we just eliminated the entire map in a single turn. Vinny and Bedwetter were on this mission, so it must be a combination of their inspiring presence and superb skill, I'm sure. But yeah, this one was a beatdown. We have one of those council missions where we have to fend off reinforcements. I'm doubting our chance to win this one, but if we skip it, the avatar progress is going to increase faster. And given that cost us our last successful attempt, we need to deploy on this one. Now the problem is we cannot just evac out once we set down. We're going to be stuck there for some time. So I decide we're going to rip off the Suicide Squad. That's the approach we're going with. I'm not expecting these guys to come back. We're going to send in the Grenadier, our 2 sharpshooters, and 2 low-level rangers. This way, if we lose the mission, which I'm fully expecting we will, at least we're not going to lose any of our top troops. The thing that I've learned about this run, and it's maybe taken me longer than it should have, but we really need to pick our spots. We're not going to win every encounter, so it's about winning the important ones. We lose Nemrus pretty quickly, but the joke's on Advent. He was the Grenadier who can't attack anyway. We encounter a pretty scary pod of a captain, mech, and purifier. We grenade the purifier into oblivion, but the captain and mech survive. I've left Dread Knight out of cover to hopefully draw Advent's attention away from our ranger. The captain grenades us, and I'm afraid the mech is going to do the same thing, but it doesn't. It takes the bait and blasts Dread Knight instead. Now, I wasn't expecting this. I thought for sure it would use its missiles and wipe out half our team. Maybe there's some kind of limit on the number of AoE attacks Advent will use in a turn, like it couldn't use its missiles because the captain already threw a grenade. Maybe we just got lucky. I'm not sure, but either way, our 2 rangers both land their melee attacks and we wipe the pod out. This is actually going way better than I expected. Once we meet up with the VIP and the reinforcements start dropping in, I decide to just run away. As long as we can keep breaking line of sight, Advent can't really do much to us. So it's pretty much a game of hide and seek, another one, until the evac arrives. Now the problem is, once it does arrive, our sharpshooter is too far away to reach it this turn. And honestly, I'm not worried about that even the slightest. He was always expendable. But what I am worried about is that the engineer can't make it to the evac zone either. And I've already moved one of our rangers before I realised this. So Hotbody, yeah, that's the man's name, Hotbody, he evacs out, but the other ranger and sharpshooter I leave to help protect the VIP from Advent. Our ranger Helms gets panicked and our sharpshooter Anakin is sadly taken out. But thankfully the plan has worked and our engineer is still alive. He just has to survive this Overwatch and he's home free. And he does it. He avoids the attack. Despite literally being named Old Man, he's matrixed his way to safety. What a legend. So that leaves poor old panicked Helms to survive an onslaught of Advent attacks. He is in full cover and he is hunkering down due to the panic, and between those two things he actually takes no damage. So then it's our turn again and his panic is removed. So if we can avoid 2 Overwatch shots, he's going to survive as well. So we send him out and the first one hits, that's not good, but the second one misses. Helms actually ends up making it out of here too. Now Anakin was bleeding out and Helms could have theoretically picked him up and carried him to safety, but I believe Overwatch shots are less likely to hit if you dash rather than just blue move. So that's why Anakin had to be left behind. We had to maximize our ranger's chances. Sorry Anakin, I know it's rough. But either way, this is huge. We won the mission and both of our rangers survived. Nemrus, Dreadnought and Anakin sacrificed themselves here for the good of the campaign. Losing them has resulted in both mission success and our 2 rangers being kept on the board. This was far more helpful than any of these 3 guys had the right to be, given they rolled really bad classes for this particular challenge. So I salute all 3 of them. Thank you for your service. Now this video is getting long already, and we still have a lot of campaign left, so we might skip ahead a bit. The next few missions all go quite well. We're even able to defeat the assassin in a sewer mission, so just like last time, we're certainly becoming more powerful. And also just like last time, I'm holding off on expanding to other regions for as long as possible. We just want to avoid encountering a Chosen with melee immunity. I am conscious of the avatar progress, so we Skulljack a captain to spawn in the first codex. And something pretty cool happens. I freeze it with the frost bomb, which leads to the codex getting hit by its own psionic blast. I don't think I've seen that before, and it was pretty cool. But you know what's not cool? We lose our second Templar. Now the game has only given us 2 this time, and I tried protecting her with an aid protocol, and she's in half cover, but she still gets wiped out by a turret. And I know I've said it before, but seriously, what is up with the turrets this run? Why are they so dangerous? I've never seen this from turrets before. Usually these things just miss all the time, but they're just annihilating our troops every chance they get. I would never have expected turrets to be this big of a problem. And I didn't need to, but I took the time to destroy this turret just because I could. They're really starting to annoy me. The game does start becoming more difficult again after this mission, like we have a Retaliation mission where the only enemy types are Berserkers and mutons, and if there's too many mutons on a mission, our options become really limited, just because we can't carry enough flashbangs to deal with them all. We needed the resistance troopers to target the mutons for us, but sadly they were way more interested in the Berserkers, and that didn't help nearly as much, so we do lose this mission. Then we have another encounter with the assassin in the sewers, and another problem we're facing now is high HP enemies, like the Berserkers I just mentioned, but also Archons. And when a whole bunch of troops are gathered around one of the Archons to melee it, the assassin blasts them all with a harbour wave. Now we can revive them all, but this lack of firepower does lead to the bad guy's overwhelming hotbody. He goes down, but thankfully only to bleed out, and we're able to destroy the relay to stop the dark event, and then we're just going to evac the team out. We're even able to carry Hotbody out with us, so we haven't lost anyone. So we may not have won the mission, but we didn't really lose either. But yeah, Advent is beginning to outpace us on the tactical layer, and that's a problem. Being the madman I am though, that doesn't stop me from skull mining a codex to bring out the avatar. I've been avoiding the Blacksite for the same reason as last time. I'd rather take out the assassin before we go there, but we do need to maintain the avatar progress as well, so this is the best way I can think to do it. And there's not much to say about the avatar. We destroy it on the same turn we summon it, so not very eventful there. We actually end up having a more difficult time with this random Archon as it takes out Lola. And Archons can be quite problematic. We really need to prioritise them, as if we let them fly into the air for blazing pinions, we can't hit them with any melee attacks. And like I said earlier, they've got a lot of HP, plus their defense is high, so even when they are on the ground, they're difficult to hit. So prioritising them requires a lot of troops. Frost bombs and flashbangs will work of course, but they are limited use items. Now Lola was relatively low level, so losing her isn't the end of the world, but we obviously want to avoid losing troops as much as we can. Next up we have a council mission, another one where we can't call for evac. The high level soldiers are waiting for Drifter to come off injury so they can attack the assassin's fortress, so this means it's up to low level guys to win the day here. And I didn't bring any unique equipment on this one since we're probably going to get squad wiped anyway. I've learned my lesson from that last Blacksite. Then again, that's what I thought about the last Suicide Squad mission, and things actually ended up going okay. So maybe the same thing will happen again? Well, it's a dark VIP mission, so my plan is to get as close to the evac point as possible, wipe out the VIP from there with a grenade or something, and then evac out. The problem is, during the mission, up-throttling kicks in. And I've mentioned up-throttling a few times in these runs, but if you don't know what it is, basically, if you stay concealed too long, Advent will start magically moving in on your position. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's the general idea. You cannot stay concealed forever. The enemy is going to find you after enough turns pass. So we end up getting cut off with an Andromedon, 2 mutons, and 3 Advent units between us and the evac zone. And after we detonate 2 grenades, a claymore, and a truck on this Andromedon, it still survives on 1 HP. In its first form. Now this thing has to be taken out to avoid it acid bombing us. So it takes pretty much our whole team just to reduce an Andromedon to second form, not even to get rid of it completely. And then on top of that the assassin appears. This is just too brutal. Now Bedwetter is an absolute beast, avoiding attacks from the Andromedon and the Muton, but there's still just way too many enemies. I don't see a path to victory here, so I send in a very lucky volunteer to slice up the VIP, and then it's just kind of every man for himself. We're just running for the evac zone and hoping Advent misses with their legion of attacks that they're going to get to make. And even though they do miss some attacks, they still land plenty of others. I mean, it's so bad that even plot armor cannot survive. And I think that might be a first. I don't think this guy has ever gone down in a campaign before. He normally always lives up to his namesake, but not this time. And BFG here gets taken out by our own mind-controlled soldier. This was absolutely brutal. But despite that, once again, half the team does make it out alive, so that's better than no one. And because we took out the VIP, the mission counts as a success, even though it really doesn't feel like it. But these soldiers' sacrifice has bought us the time we need, and we can now go after the assassin. Now yes, we do have some high level ranges for this one, but we've actually got a couple of other things working in our favour. The first is having a decently leveled psyop. Just like last time, I've been training these guys up in the background until they were ready for combat. And on top of that, our Templar has Fortress. This gives us a way to wipe out purifiers without having to worry about explosion damage. Now here, the final chamber, I mess up a little bit. I move our scout too far forward to get a glimpse of the bad guys from concealment. This causes the assassin to spawn in prematurely. I wasn't ready for her. But I figure it's not a big deal, we can just repeat the same Bladestorm trick against her that we used on the Warlock. And once again, eliminating the Chosen on the enemy turn rather than ours means no reinforcements will spawn in. Now those original enemies, we haven't been able to take out them, but we really just want to ignore them and focus on the sarcophagus. And just like before, blue screen bombs get this done for us pretty easily, so that means the assassin is back with 25 HP. And we're dominating this encounter so much that I opt to wipe out the codex that was in here when we arrived. Now, I've been ignoring it until now. But see, finishing it off means a little bit more XP for our troops. So we went from losing half the team in the previous mission to a flawless victory on this one. And that's the difference between our high-level troops and our low-level troops. Something else working for us in this run is that we're getting pretty good luck with covert ops that reduce the avatar progress. That's helping negate the lack of territorial expansion. We didn't get that in the previous campaign, and it is making a big difference. It's really helping us out here. And I've got some jank to show you here. We've mind-controlled a chrysalid with Dominate, plus this trooper thanks to a lucky insanity roll. Now, chrysalids were fine to attack with since they use melee attacks. The trooper we can't do much with, other than use his grenade. But for some reason, every time I use the grenade with this trooper, our turn instantly ends. Like even when our entire squad has actions left, the turn just ends and Advent gets to go again. And this happened repeatedly, it was happening every turn. I ended up having to use the trooper last and exhaust everyone else's actions first. Now, needless to say, this did cause a reload and a pinch or two of salt from yours truly. And then look at this one. There's a shield bearer who's activated his shield. Now, we used the Skulljack with Hex. That's going to bypass the shield and one-shot this guy. So Hex moves in. We fail the roll for feedback damage, but Hex doesn't take any feedback damage. He's still on 7 HP, which he was on before he attacked. And on top of that, he's been given 2 extra actions. So we took no damage from the Skulljack, and the game didn't even count using it as an action. Plus, all Advent shields are still up. And you want to know why they're still up? Because the shield bearer we just stabbed through the brain is somehow still alive. Yeah, he's right here. He's just moved a couple of tiles. So it's like all of Hex's actions just never happened. But with one exception. We've still lost our one and only use of Skull Mine for the mission. Yeah, of course the game is still going to make sure we get screwed over. And all this nonsense is happening on the same mission, for the record. This is the most broken mission of all time. I've no idea what's going on, but it's times like these I feel like trying a Phoenix Point challenge run instead. So the toughest opponent on this mission is the Glitch Gremlin. Does anyone remember that episode of AVGN? Whatever. Everyone makes it out home alive, so that's the main thing. We did win. And after this mission, we can finally build our first Mimic Beacon. Failing that Retaliation mission a while back, that's really delayed our progress on this research. And then check this one out. A mission to rescue Bismarck. Yeah, he's the guy who slaughtered one of our own troops. I mean, he was mind-controlled, to be fair. And by the time this rescue mission rolls around, Board is rocking the Assassin's Katana. Now this thing is amazing, as it not only guarantees her Bladestorm attacks will connect, barring things like lightning reflexes on spectres that can counter it, but on top of that, it also ignores 5 points of armour. So things like heavy mechs are a lot less scary now. And soon enough, Bismarck is back in the fold. Awesome. Now I have finally started expanding to new regions, and on this mission we encounter the Hunter, and my worst fear finally comes true. Yeah, forget all the other strengths, the big one here is melee immunity. Now the fact he has Shell Shocked as a weakness is good for us, gives our rangers a decent way to attack him, they can use their grenades. But even beyond that, I don't think this is the end of the world. See, by this stage we have multiple Psyops, so it's going to be up to them to take this guy out. They can use things like Soulfire and Null Lance. And I deliberately waited until we had some decently leveled Psyops before we started expanding to more regions for this very reason. If we had encountered the Hunter earlier and he had this ability, it would have been a disaster. Without Psyops, we'd have no real way to take him on. So the whole plan up until now has been keeping the Avatar progress under control as best we can until the Psyops were ready, then we can start expanding out, making more story progress. The other thing we have working in our favour is Ionic Storm on our Templar, and that will actually damage the Hunter. Not to mention Chainsaw also has combat protocol. Oh, and look at this, Bismarck again taking out a soldier on our own team. This time it was a mind-controlled stun lancer though. I didn't need to take him out, but doing so will award us with some XP, so why not? Your service is appreciated, Mr. Lancer. Anyway, I mentioned the Avatar progress before. It's probably time we get around to the Blacksite, I guess. Feels weird to me doing this after we vanquished an Avatar. Sectopods and Gatekeepers never spawn on this mission, so the enemies we're facing are relatively easy to deal with compared to the strength of our soldiers. And there's honestly not much to say. The only challenge comes from bad luck and jank. Like, I don't worry about the Archon's blazing pinions because Darkhawk here has Fortress. You know, the ability that makes the soldier immune to explosions. Well, apparently it doesn't work on blazing pinions and we still take damage. On what planet is this attack right here, not an explosion? This is ridiculous. Then after that, Drifter activates a pod through a door. There was no way these guys should have been able to see us, but jank is gonna jank, I guess. Maybe they got a glimpse of us through the window. I don't know, whatever, we'll deal with it. And I will say, one-shotting a mech with a mind-controlled Archon is pretty cool. Anyway, because of all this nonsense, we do take some injuries, but we don't lose anybody, so still a much better outing than the previous Blacksite. But yeah, this mission did still annoy me this time around as well. And then look at this, 3 covert ops to reduce the avatar progress. It's amazing the difference these things can make to the difficulty of a run. And with the Blacksite done, we get the base defense mission. And maybe the craziest thing about this mission is that the backup Bradford sends out is actually a high-level, really useful soldier. Bradford being competent. This run is truly something else. Then we mind control this trooper, which reveals a pod, but the pod doesn't activate. This run seems to be actually destroying the game at this point. Nothing is working as it should be. On the enemy turn, the pod does move forward and activates, and a second pod also activates. On top of that, I get a glimpse of a third pod behind the first one. So I don't really want to run out there to melee, because that's going to activate that third pod. That leaves us with pretty limited options. We can attack with the Psi operatives, the Templars can use Volt, and the rest of the troops are just lobbing grenades. And without melee attacks, our team does kinda suck. We can't do all that much damage. No Bladestorm, no Reaper, none of that good stuff. We are able to shut down the heavy mech with a lucky blue screen bomb, and Stasis can disable the Andromedon, so the most dangerous enemies have been dealt with, at least for this turn. A Priest and Stun Lancer drop in as reinforcements, and one of the Spectres clones Sarge. Our second Templar, Storm, has Reaper as a hidden ability, so she takes out the Spectre, and then I want to use Sarge to inflict some damage on this Lancer. Storm will then be able to run forward and finish him off, being able to move up and keep her Reaper chain going. Well, Sarge here has other ideas and just one-shots the Lancer with an enormous crit. It's rare I complain about doing too much damage, but that is the case here. It's ruined that Reaper chain. Now, moving this far forward does of course activate that other pod that I mentioned earlier. I was expecting it though, so I'm not too worried. Now, the pod does have a muton, but between the Psyops and the throwing axe, these guys aren't nearly as scary as they were in the early game. Our mind-controlled trooper, who has used his one grenade, it didn't prematurely end our turn this mission, so that was really nice. Well, he can't really do anything anymore, so I just stand him in front of this priest. Having to run around the trooper may slow the priest down by a tile or two, and I just imagine our trooper standing there, waving his arms, yelling insults, just anything to get the priest's attention and keep him away from the Avenger. We're not able to send one of the Andromedons to second form. It survives on a single point of HP, of course. Now, this could be disastrous if it goes for Acid Bomb, but it thankfully spends both its actions on movement to try and reach the Avenger. I was hedging my bets that that is what it would do, and my gamble paid off, so that's really good. But don't worry, we have some more jank. Drifter's Bladestorm doesn't activate against the mech, and it gets to bombard us into oblivion. And I don't mean the Bladestorm missed, I mean a Drifty boy didn't even attempt it. He just waved goodbye to the mech as it ran off to slaughter his friends. Now, I could reload the turn, I think it would be justified here, but this turn took absolutely ages, and I don't want to do it again. No one perished from the missiles, so I just take this one on the chin. And then I promptly send Poseidon to annihilate that scumbag cheating mech. And the thing is, XCOM 2 will often throw annoying glitches at the player, but this run seems way more cursed than usual. Also, as a completely random aside, I misspelled annihilate typing the script just now, and Word's suggestion for the corrected version of what I was trying to say was anti-hole. I don't even know what an anti-hole is, and I want to keep it that way, but I thought it was funny. Anyway, back to the game. We chuck a battle scanner on the Avenger platform. A Spectre did conceal and disappear from the map a while ago, so I'd hate for it to sneak aboard the Avenger and cost us the entire campaign. But then again, at the same time, that would be a galaxy-brained move from the AI, and I would respect the heck out of it. But no, the Spectre is about as far from the Avenger as it could possibly be. It's just hanging out doing nothing. That sounds more like it. Now it does clone Metla this time, but it's pretty isolated at this point, so we can take it down easily. So we continue cleaning up the bad guys. We eradicate all of them, minus one Andromedon wreck, which isn't too dangerous. So I charge full speed ahead towards the Disruptor, but it turns out it wasn't all the enemies. There's one last pod remaining. I really should have expected this, but for whatever reason I didn't. So we're out of position to really deal with these guys, so we just use the mind-controlled Trooper and Priest to draw enemy fire. And it works reasonably well, none of our operatives take damage. That's mostly due to the Archon going for Blazing Pinions. And see, when it's in the air, even though we can't use melee attacks on it, we can panic the Archon with one of our Psyops, and it uses its height advantage to blast the Andromedon wreck in its panic, finally taking it out. What a sight to behold, this was awesome. So after an absolute age, our melee boys finally make it to the Disruptor and destroy it, and I gotta tell ya, this took a really long time. This mission is pretty brutal without guns. Moving on, the man himself has finally returned, the Warlock. The guy who put us through so much pain in the last, not completely terrible attempt. He's got Shadow Step, Beastmaster, Kinetic Plating, Blast Shield, and Regeneration. Yeah, he's got a few abilities. Man is absolutely stacked. His weaknesses are Groundling and Reapers, neither of which are helpful to us, especially since he's immune to explosions. Our Reaper has literally no way of attacking him, so that works out really well. Now the question you might be wondering is, why are we seeing this guy? Wasn't I holding off from expanding our regions because of the Chosen? Well see, the thing is, now that the Hunter has melee immunity, we really have nothing else to worry about. The Warlock will always have different strengths and weaknesses to the Hunter, so it's not like we can have melee immunity twice. Once we saw the Hunter had that ability, there was no reason to worry about the Warlock anymore. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Now of course the Warlock spawns in his Rupture zombies on us, but late game these things really aren't all that scary. See, they'll finish moving before activating Rupture, so they'll move, stop, then activate Rupture. Now that may not sound that important, but it is. The moment they reach one of our ranges, our Blade Storm activates, so we can actually vanquish them with Blade Storm before they have a chance to activate Rupture, meaning no explosion when we send them to the Shadow Realm. And if they do somehow get to activate Rupture, we have our Psyops who can take them down from a distance. And this is why I really didn't want the Warlock as our first Chosen. Early game we have basically no way to deal with his zombies, but late game they're pretty much a joke. And the Warlock himself doesn't do too much better either. You can see I've mind-controlled a Muton. These guys work pretty well for us since they have a grenade and a melee attack, both of which we can use. Now I won't spend too much time on it, but we did have another Lost mission here, and we activate pretty much the entire map all at once. Every Advent unit, and I think most, if not all, lost. And there's a sector pod to boot. And somehow, we win. And we take minimal damage, like not that much at all. Originally my plan with this mission was to just plant the X4 and then evac out. I figured with Lost on the mission there was no way we'd be able to eliminate every enemy. But not only did we wipe them all out, we did so having activated all of them at the same time. We've certainly come a long way since our very humble beginnings. And the biggest difference makers on the Lost are Blade Storm and Reaper. Being able to attack multiple enemies per turn really helps keep them under control. Shortly after this one, we set out for the Warlock. I'm holding off on the Hunter because of his melee immunity. I'd like another max level Psyop or two before we go and get him. The Warlock though, he shouldn't prove to be too much of a challenge. At least that's what I thought. See, I try to finish him off with Blade Storm since that strat has been working so well this run. The problem is I've forgotten he has Shadow Step, which means Blade Storm won't actually activate on him. It does activate on the beasts he summons in though.
Alright, use your Blade Storms, gentlemen. And lady. What? No! Oh no. Well, actually, we might get some Blade Storms off on them as well. Take that, you fools! You foolish fools!
So yeah, that's pretty great. But even after Blade Storm didn't activate, Past Drifter here still hadn't clued in to what's going on. At the time of playing the game, I just thought maybe Blade Storm doesn't activate on Mind Scorch, so I end my turn prematurely, letting the Warlock get a whole other turn. I thought if I cleared a path, he would run through it and we'd be able to Blade Storm him then. But you can see after he moves, no Blade Storms trigger, and that's when Twitch chat reminds me about Shadow Step and I finally clue into what's going on. So now we've got 4 Spectral Lancers to deal with that I could have easily avoided if I just attacked on the previous turn. Certainly not my greatest play here, but not my worst either. So we finally take him down, and then, as usual, it's time to throw the EMPs. We have to deal with reinforcements, but one of them was a shield bearer, so we mind control him and take his shield for ourselves. This actually was quite useful. Then the Warlock returns with 50 HP, took us a little bit longer to destroy the sarcophagus this time, and I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. We move in with everything we have, and we take this guy down once and for all. Now this one was a bit more difficult than it needed to be because I was making some bad plays, but overall, it was still pretty easy. And now that the old talky one is gone, we might as well hit the Forge mission. He's not going to be there to bother us on it. But we quickly run into a problem when we activate a pod on the other side of the bridge, including a sector pod. And that's really not great. Even though we do have some max level psyops, the bulk of our team is still melee focused, so not being able to get into
close range
does limit our options somewhat. Luckily we've scored a mind control on a codex from Void Rift, so we can teleport it right into the enemies and drop a psionic bomb. I don't even use a mimic beacon to distract the sector pod, instead I just try to bait the untouchable block with MySpace. Yeah, that's her name. Now the sector pod was hit by the psionic bomb, but it doesn't actually do anything. I didn't realise that. The sector pod can still attack us, seemingly with all its weapons, so that's pretty obnoxious. It uses its AoE attack, and for whatever trash reason, Poseidon's parry doesn't block it. Now Untouchable still works, that blocks the attack, and parry will block grenades, but for some reason, parry does not trigger on this one specific attack. Like I said, obnoxious. So I'm a little bit annoyed, but Poseidon still survives, and then we destroy the oversized tin can, and the rest of the mission is very straightforward. This first encounter was a bit tough, purely due to the ground we had to cover, but once we're inside the building and we can get in closer to the bad guys before engaging them, there's really not too much to worry about. We have a lot more options at our disposal. So that one's a victory. However, all these extra missions we've been doing have left our barracks extremely depleted. So for the next guerrilla op, we're sending in... yeah, a single Reaper who can't attack, against a horde of Lost. Now the plan is to go in, plant the X4 to stop the Dark event, and then evac out as quickly as possible. The Reaper should be pretty good at sneaking past the Lost, so I'm hoping things will go pretty well, until this absolute madman from the Resistance decides he's gonna join us. Yeah, we have that Continental bonus where we can get a Resistance soldier, and this guy is obviously way worse at evading the Lost's detection than the Reaper is. And look, I'm taking no responsibility for this. I did not ask this guy to come. He made that choice for himself. So he ends up serving as basically a human mimic beacon. He draws the Lost in, allowing the Reaper to plant the X4, not having to worry about any of the Lost. And then we can throw down an evac zone and bail. And both men actually survive. I genuinely didn't expect that. But hey, we might not have won the mission. We've stopped the dark event. That's what we wanted to do. This was a good mission. And now the time has finally come. We're ready to hit the Hunter's base. And you can see our team here. 4 Psyops, a Specialist, and a Templar. This is probably the only time we'll send a squad out on a story mission without a single Ranger. And the reasoning is quite simple. All these guys and girls have a way of hurting the Hunter. Even the Templar can use things like Vault. And you might be wondering, how did we even get the Specialist to Colonel level? And the truth is, we didn't. Malorian here was a mission reward and he came to us at max level already. Now he can only attack 3 times with his gremlin, but I figure that's better than 0 attacks against the Hunter, which the Rangers would have. Plus, the Psyops should be able to carry things. And you can see here, 1 use of Reaper on Storm, in combination with Inspire from the Psyops, and she's just ripping through these codex clones. It doesn't matter how many of them spawn, she's just annihilating them, again and again. It was pretty great, I have to be honest. Now another problem with the Hunter being immune to melee is that once again, we can't use our Blade Storm trick on him, so no taking him out on his turn. So we have to attack him the old-fashioned way, and by the old-fashioned way, I mean with a bunch of limited use abilities. As for the Sarcophagus, we're still just hitting it with EMPs. I think Null Lance can hit it, but we want to save those for the Hunter anyway, so the EMP bombs are our best bet on this thing. And the reinforcements kind of suck. We're able to dominate an Andromedon, which is pretty good, but the other enemy is a Spectre, and our mind control abilities will not work on that target. I was hoping to get a captain or 2 so we could dominate them and then use their grenades, but no such luck. I opt to destroy the Sarcophagus over using a Mimic Beacon on the Spectre, and this choice does pay off as the Spectre just vanishes. I think it was too far away to clone any of our troops, and that's what I was banking on, so that's really awesome. And of course, the problem with limited use attacks is that a lot of them are now on cooldown. We used 3 out of our 4 Null Lances on the Hunter previously, so our options now are a bit limited. Now thankfully, I did have this in mind, and I did save a max power Ionic Storm for the Hunter's return. That takes a huge amount of his health, and then we follow up with the 4th Null Lance, and the only one that's not on cooldown. Hunter Boy survives on 1 HP, of course, that's happened a few times in this run. And I figure, in this particular campaign, Malorian is probably never going to be used again after this mission, so we might as well give him the honours. None of these troops need the XP anyway, so take it away Malorian, have your 2 seconds of glory, finish that Hunter off. And yeah, he's done. He didn't get to attack us at all on this mission. Psyops are so powerful that not using their gun really doesn't limit their usefulness very much at all. They are the perfect class for this run. Well, not perfect. If we could have gotten their abilities earlier, they'd be perfect, but they're still really good. Anyways, let's keep this one moving. It's time for the Psionic Gate now. And the strat here is pretty simple. You've seen it before. We're gonna send in Board. Yeah, that's the strat. Board not only has the Katana, which is guaranteed to hit and one-shot any chrysalids that charge at her, I've also been buffing her stats via Covert Ops, that's why she hasn't been around on any missions lately. Her dodge stat is 100, which I believe means she's guaranteed to dodge every single attack that lands on her, so she's extremely powerful. And the only damage she takes from the whole mission is from us. I thought she was far enough away to not be hit by our Void Rift attack, but turns out I was wrong. She does take some damage. That's a little bit embarrassing, but either way, a very straightforward mission here, since there was no Chosen to bother us. And we only brought 1 Psyop with us on this one, so while the Psyops are really powerful, our max level Rangers are still more than capable of handling themselves, as long as there's no Hunter with melee immunity, of course. And if you've ever wanted to see a chrysalid get punched to death by an Andromedon, well, this one's for you. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that one. I know I did. And you may be thinking, it's game over, right? We're just too powerful for Advent to do anything to us. And to be honest, I was thinking the same thing at this point in the run. We're really just waiting for research to complete and then we can end the campaign. It's to the point I'm so bored and we have so many extra resources, I have taken the time to build a spark, just for the heck of it. When you build a spark, you just get one from the character pool randomly, so I didn't know it would be Arnie, but I was certainly glad to see him. He can't really do very much apart from punch, and even then it's a 5-turn cooldown, which is pretty much hot garbage. But I'm not worried. We got this, right? Well, like they say, pride cometh before the fall. I'm so busy punching and stabbing things, I completely forget about the turn limit timer. It expires and we lose the mission. So yeah, that was a pretty big-brained play from me. Now to be fair, this run had been extremely long, and by this point I was starting to be a bit over it. I mean, you have no idea how many missions I've skipped in this video, because otherwise it would just go forever. But anyway, point is, I was a bit burned out and I wasn't playing at my best, so I really messed up here. And that shows us that Advent does have one weapon still at their disposal: Drifter's finite attention span. Now, given how over the run I was at this point, I guess we should finish it up. And to be honest, I really only mentioned that previous mission because I wanted to include Arnie in this video, so I hope you enjoyed his cameo. We're sure not taking him on the final 2 missions, not when we've got a max level Psyop, Templar and Ranger for the network tower. We mind control the first muton we see. Again, like I said, these guys are a pretty useful enemy to have on our side, and doing this activates 2 more pods. So our team of 3, 4 if you include the muton, is staring down, I think, 5 enemies, and they're all Archons and Codexes. Archons have a lot of HP, and Codexes are going to clone when we attack them. So these are some pretty terrible enemies for us to face. But there's one thing poor old Advent didn't plan on. See, one of our intel bonuses on this mission was an increased chance to crit. So we activate Reaper with Drifter, and he goes to town on these fools. I was desperately crossing my fingers that he'd take out the Archon. Not only does he do that, he one-shots 2 Codexes as well. This man is off the chain. Our entire side of the map gets cleaned out. No more enemies here. But that's the caveat, right? On our side of the map. There's still 1 Codex and Archon who are too far away for us to melee. So thanks to an EMP bomb and Vault, we can wipe out the Codex, but the Archon, there's just nothing we can do to stop this thing. And you'll see here, we have picked up Tactical Analysis at some point. This is going to make these final missions even easier, at least that's what I expect. But yeah, here's the problem with Archons. It goes for Blazing Pinions. And with it in the air, Drifter, Poseidon, nor our new Muton friend can touch this thing. So that just leaves Metla. And thankfully, Metla can land a 100% insanity check. So now that it's panicked, all we have to do is avoid the Blazing Pinions, at which point the Archon returns to the ground, cowering in fear for its life. I wanted to get some focus with Poseidon here, but Drifter is having none of it and lands another enormous crit, obliterating the Archon. Man is stealing all the glory for himself, which, to be honest, is totally something I would do, so fair enough. The last pod we can just ignore and hack the objective for the victory. I did actually bond Poseidon and Drifter a while ago, and having that bonded action allows us to finish this one up nice and quick. And so it's that time again, we've finally gotten here. The final mission. We have 2 Rangers in Board and Vinny who are also bonded. Then we have 3 Psyops and our second Templar. Now I'm going to be honest, at the time of writing this script, it's been so long since I played this mission, I can't actually remember how it went down. But I'm going to make a prediction that we stomp a mud hole on Advent and walk it dry. Shout out to anyone who got that reference. And the Commander's avatar is fair game on this one, provided we don't use his rifle. So to start things off, the game throws some mutons at us, but the days of them being a threat have long since passed. We wipe both of them out with a single null lance. Beautiful. And we want to rack up eliminations with Storm whenever we can to build her focus. No Drifter to steal all the kills on this one. Also, for some reason, our avatar's Null Lance is slightly weaker than the Psyops. I'm not sure why this is the case. Maybe the commander doesn't benefit from breakthrough research improving our weapons damage output. I really don't know. It's not a big deal though, I just thought it was interesting. And then look at the sheer amount of codexes and archons. Now I told you these guys are some of the more annoying enemies for us to face at this point, and the game is making sure to give us plenty of them. So thanks for that, thanks very much. That's the XCOM I've come to both love and hate. Now the plan ends up being to just spam Void Rift dealing big damage and then scoring with some insanity rolls. But we actually get pretty unlucky with the insanity, so it doesn't work as well as I would have liked. And even though the codexes have spawned quite a few clones, they all have a pittance of health. And we have Reaper on board. So this one's just a straight up massacre, one after the other. She just charges at them and cuts them down. I do let a couple live just because running out there could cause another pod to activate, and I really don't want to do that. So on their turn, the codexes do get to attack, but they don't do very much, and interestingly, tactical analysis doesn't seem to affect the clones. Anyway, I honestly didn't keep track of the number of codexes we destroyed with this pod, but it was a lot. And you know what else is a lot? The number of Alamars we annihilate with a dimensional rift from our avatar. And the strat here has been to keep Vinny in concealment. This allows him to scout the enemies, and our Psi soldiers can then drop those big AoE attacks from beyond line of sight. The plan has been working really well up until now, but sadly one of the mutons does finally reveal Vinny. But we can just place him right back in concealment, so it's not really a big deal. Only one sector pod to deal with, not two, so that's really nice. Mechanical enemies are probably the worst for us to deal with by this stage, since some of our psionic abilities don't work on them. However, we've still got plenty of abilities that do work, like stasis, so we can just shut that sector pod down and deal with its minions instead. Once we've either wiped them out or mind controlled them, we can hit the sector pod with as many attacks as we need, and once it's down, it's time for the final chamber. It all comes down to this. We send Board in to abuse Bladestorm on the first avatar's pod. She can hit the avatar once with a slash, and then follow up with a Bladestorm on the avatar and one of the Archons. So we've taken about half this pod's total health with a single soldier. The avatar seems pretty afraid, and rightly so, and it teleports really far away, right into the back corner of the room. But once again, with some Reaper and Inspire abuse, Storm can make it all the way over there. She covered a huge amount of distance. Now she doesn't quite do enough damage to finish the avatar off, so that kind of sucks, but it's not a problem as it teleports closer to the rest of the squad, and we can finally finish it off that way. Normally I'd mind control the two Archons, but I didn't really plan ahead well enough, and we just didn't have the right troops in the right position to be able to do that. So instead we just finished them off. It's not a big deal. Alright, reinforcement time. We've got a pod of Faceless dropping in on one side, which honestly just had me laughing. They're not gonna survive a single use of Reaper. Some Chrysalids arrive too, and I end up mind controlling one of them. Not as good as an Archon, but pretty mobile and has a melee attack we can use. Not a bad addition to our ranks. Then Board with Reaper and some assistance from our avatar empties the room of hostiles. We are truly dominating here. So what about the second avatar? Is it going to do any better? Well, it spawns on top of Board, and she's reasonably isolated in that area of the map. So this could potentially be a problem. Plus, on the other side of the map, it's a group of mutons. It's going to be up to our Psyops to deal with these guys. We don't want the Rangers doing that. So our avatar mind controls one of the enemy avatar's Andromedon bodyguards. We've also moved in our Chrysalid as a meat shield, so Board is looking a lot less isolated now. We move her in to hit the avatar, causing it to teleport away, and then, thanks to Vinny, she can use a bonded action to throw down a meme beacon to distract the remaining enemies in that corner of the chamber. so I'm thinking she should be pretty safe. We then hit a Null Lance on the Avatar, but it hangs on with just a sliver of HP, and it teleports into a position where we cannot get any further attacks on it, so I don't see how we're going to be able to finish it off this turn. That being the case, we might as well just deal with the mutons instead. We mind control one and distract the others with a meme beacon, so in the space of one turn, we've really fallen behind the 8-ball. We went from clearing the entire area to being swarmed by enemies. And part of the problem is once Void Rift goes on cooldown, our Psyops aren't that great at dealing with large numbers of enemies. We don't have many options for crowd control. But enough about that, check out this absolute nonsense. The Avatar goes from mind control on our Psyop, Skurkrov. Now I was laughing as it did this because he has Solace, an ability that negates any mental effects. Well, the mind control still works somehow. Now I literally thought this was impossible. He has Solace. Solace! If a soldier gets mind controlled, literally all you have to do is run the guy with Solace over to them and they'll be freed. Heck, I did this myself earlier in this very run. But the guy with Solace himself is getting mind controlled? And look at the description of this ability. Blocks any mental impairments for themselves and any nearby allies. For themselves. What is this absolute garbage? And that is not even the most absurd part about this scenario. See, Skurkrov is the one who had mind controlled the Chrysalid. And the Chrysalid is still on our side. So the Chrysalid is on our team, even though the guy controlling the Chrysalid is now against us. This run is so stupid. Every time I think the game can't be any more absurd, it proves me wrong. As if doing a no-gun run wasn't bad enough, we're having to deal with broken mechanic after broken mechanic, and I'm getting sick and tired of it. Anyway, no time for salt right now. We've got a campaign to win. Now during the last turn, we were able to move a couple of soldiers closer to Board's side of the map, and they're able to take this cheating Avatar down once and for all. So we regain control of the guy we should never have lost control of. Oh joy, thanks a bunch game. Now moving those soldiers closer to Board's side means we've left the other side pretty barren. So it's probably gonna suck to be those troopers who are still there on the next turn. But for right now, here's an Andromedon punching a sectoid off a ledge. Now that is therapeutic, I have to admit. Alright, so now two Berserkers both land crits on the final meme beacon, two-shotting it, but the rest of the bad guys on that side of the room just stand there. I think there is a limit to the number of enemies that will attack per turn, at least when you're not playing on Legend. It's called shackling, so maybe that's what happened. I don't know. Whatever. Let's just destroy this last Avatar and leave this pain behind us. Board kicks things off with a big crit, doing half damage. Very nice. Then Vinny follows up, setting the Avatar on fire. And I think that's the first attack Vinny has made this whole mission, including the first section. So we are certainly getting desperate here. Storm then runs in for the final attack, and this run ends the same way it began. A Templar bringing the pain. And so it's done. We've beaten the game without firing a single weapon a single time. And the reward for doing so is this screen right here. Successful shot percentage is blank, because we didn't make any shots. Not once. And seeing this honestly made me feel pretty proud of myself. It's not often the game actually gives feedback on completing one of these runs, let alone one this difficult. So I was pretty chuffed with this. I thought this was cool. And there we are. What's left to even say? Not only was this run crushingly difficult up until the late game, we had so much shenanigans thrown our way. So many glitches, so many broken mechanics, so much nonsense. I really think this may have been the worst run I've ever done. I mean, it took the most attempts to complete, and honestly, the only reason we survived the mid-game is because the game was generous with the covert ops to reduce Avatar progress. Without those, I'm not sure how we would have gone. But let's not think about that. Let's just enjoy the victory. So I think the best thing to do here is move on and never speak of this suffering ever again. Now, I do plan for the wait for the next video to be a lot shorter than the wait for this one was, so I hope you'll subscribe to the channel and join me for that. Until next time, thank you very much for watching and giving me the time. I hope you liked the video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, have a great day.